My name's Garry Hearn. I'm in the military. I'm still in the military. Rest assured we're not going to do any more PT, right? We've done enough already. So what we're going to talk about here is a story of change and how we've identified change in a particular part of the military and how we're now addressing that. And I think when we finish this and we get into the questions and the discussion, which is far more important than perhaps some of the slides that will go up, if you're just bearing in mind for organisations that are in the audience at the moment who want to change but haven't been able to, and those organisations that wanted to change and have changed, let's try and discuss collaboratively how we can move forward. What were the barriers that those people who have changed knocked down, and what are the barriers that people are facing at the moment? And I think that would be the big part of this for me to get out of this. I'll give you a story of what we've done. Can you bring it up, Paul? Thanks. Do you wait? Okay, that's what I'm going to talk about. The organisation, about 40,000 strong. So the message there is really, it's a big organisation. I'm a programme manager of change, and it happens to be in the training and education environment within the military. I'm neither an educator nor a technologist. I've come from a business environment, but this is my programme. Take you through when we woke up. About 2011, we're sitting there, we've got a great traditional approach. Take those people, and by the way, if anybody's from a secondary education environment sitting in the room, you produce fantastic people. What we get in the military are brilliant, motivated, inspirational, driven people. Brilliant, absolutely fantastic. So when I listen to people talking, beating our young people up, it really frustrates me. So we get those people, we put them into a traditional school, we give them some traditional type of learning, hands-on, an instructor at the front, and out pops a wonderful service person. And after a period of time, we bring them back round, push them through it again, and out they go. Very gold-plated, very risk-averse, and really capable. But it has two fundamental issues to it in terms of bottlenecks. There's a time bottleneck, because we're saying to people, only come and train at a particular point in time, and there's a capacity bottleneck, because we only have 16 places in a room to teach people. And the way we did that from a through-life perspective, front end is, they've done all their marching and shooting, they come to us and do some technical training. That's the front end, that very first block. Typically 4 to 12 months of really deep technical training. Go away, do some, that class 2 bit is in-situation development. Go away again for a period of time, 3 to 8 years, come back to the schoolhouse and do some more technical training. And if they're really, really good, they'll go away for a bit more time, 3 to 8 years, come back and be a ninja in technical stuff. Brilliant. Add that up, that's a lot of training when they want people out in the front line command or on the business unit. Right, a bit of interaction. What's that? Was it? To me, it was plagiarism. For a student, it's information source. What's that? Apart from a blurred picture, it's a school. The place of learning for me, one place of learning for him. You get my drift. So in 2011, we began to wake up to this. Our management data was beginning to tell us something's wrong here. But the other point here is the guy on the left, as you look at it, makes policy and process and practice and tells people, tells the one on the right what's going to happen. I'm not even going to use it. They're using it. They're my customer. The other customer, the other dynamics that were going on around 2011, like any public sector, costs are going up, funding's going down. Military's getting smaller, but very, very complex. Much more complex than we've traditionally had. So we've got dynamics there, less money, smaller organisation, more complex. Ergo, we want more out of our people. So we sat about and said, right, baseline the customer requirements. What's the student require? Been going for some time as an organisation, so we must be fairly successful. Those two groupings are taught in that manner. When we looked at our students, they came from an experiential team-based environment. Now I'm generalising because of course some still come from a traditional environment, but a much more experiential type environment, and as mentioned by Andrew, absolutely comfortable with technology. Don't understand the gubbins necessarily, but comfortable with it and expect it. So that was our students. Then we looked at the operation. What were we going to do on the Ford factory floor? What were we going to do in Marks and Spencer's shop retail environment? In our environment, what are we going to do on ships, in the Army, or on an Air Force? And we used Bloom's taxonomy and said, right, okay, if we're going to do instructor-led development, learning, we'll hit the bottom end of Bloom's taxonomy and we'll do that sort of stuff. Brilliant for drills. Really, really important. And the important thing for us, we do not want to throw that out. When you go into a blended learning environment that we're going into, you look for your anti-thesis. And I picked up Daisy Christodoulopoulos. If she's in the audience, I apologise if I got that wrong. 7 Myths of Education, within which she is held up as a anti-blended learning. The reality is what she's saying is that you need to understand the facts and the basics in order to become exploitative, creative, analytical. That's us, we need that piece. The other thing we need, or we don't need, is we don't need service people who are coming under fire on operations wondering whether Nietzsche is a theory or a philosophy. We actually want them to react a little bit. So that's important to us. Go back to that complexity, and we've stated in the military that we want an agile thinking warrior. If we want that sort of person, we need to be hitting that top end as well. And I suspect in the UK and most of Western government environments, Western nations, we're not a manufacturing organisation, or far less than we used to be. We're a knowledge community, a knowledge environment. That's really important if we want to get our people to work in that environment. And the other part was agility. Our customers were saying, I don't want to send people back to the schoolhouse. When they're not with me, they cost me money. They cost me time. So if we can take that wherever, that's what they're after. So we sort of woke up to that 2011, did some evaluation, and I said, what's brilliance? What's brilliance look like for us? And we come up with a number of things. Self-motivated learner. We were, to a certain extent, spoon-feeding people into a previous training regime when we required as an organisation. We wanted them to become more self-motivated. I think it's really interesting. This is one of those boundary things where you start saying learning development organisation, HR, operational front end. Should the talent management process that we had in place drive our capability, or should our capability drive our talent management? And we felt the other way around. Get our people to say, I'm ready. You can make me one of those corporals, sergeants. I'm now ready to do it. Goes without saying, we weren't meeting our student expectations. And efficiency achieved through effectiveness. Really easy to say. You have to prove how doing something different actually turns into money. Success, right, a bit more interaction. Come on, what's success in this environment? Just two comments. Anybody's, what, can say anything. You can say Swindon Town's successful, because I think they are, but go on. Just throw anything up.
Performance.
Performance, brilliant. That was success for us. It's odd, isn't it? What we wanted is people to beat us up and say, I want more of that. I want more of a virtual learning environment. I want more distance learning. I want more distributed learning. I want more blended learning. Because when our customers start telling us that, we've really got it, cracked it, because they're the people who deliver capability. So building the capability, first thing we did was create an innovation cell. It was really important. Create the capacity to think. We're all busy doing their day job. We're all busy delivering today's output. What we needed is somebody to think ahead and do it differently. So we looked at a technologist, an educator, and a people development person, brought them together, said, right, start thinking ahead. Still need that person. First bit was to say, right, okay, that's how we've taught you to do this business. We need you to do something different. We brought evidence-based teaching. We got a guy called Jeff Petty down, did lots of training with us, and then we linked it with how-tos, which is how to do things differently. So we were actually changing our people. Once you change the people, technology is easy, because technology is a small bit on top of it. If you're really addressing their skills, their basic skills, and you're changing it, That's what we did, is bring in some really focus on people side and rolled that out. Then began to dribble out some technology. So using the virtual learning environment, using a bit of e-learning. Then brought loads more in, but as a blend, so appropriate time and space. Team-based activities required us to be in teams. We never work outside of the team in the military, and I don't suspect anybody else does. But we had a system that teaches people as individuals. Don't worry too much about the detail. This is really an instructor development program, because this is vital. If we don't change our people, we go nowhere. We just have shiny toys on the shelf. So we had to put in a whole level of activity. Top line shows the time they're with us. Second, left-hand side, sort of compulsory skills and compulsory quality type things. But along the bottom, some hooks and motivation to develop. And we're in the midst of this now. Andy mentioned about finding those really clever, passionate people out there. And I've got some in the audience, because I'm looking around at some of the faces here. I told them not to come, but they are here. Ink spots of excellence. Nothing to do with rank, nothing to do with status, nothing to do with position. It's about passion and wanting to do this differently. So we found these ink spots of excellence, and sometimes they didn't know they were an ink spot of excellence, and we started pumping stuff at them, because I'm in an ivory tower. What I needed was people on the ground floor, on the shop floor, starting to talk to each other and spread the message, whichever way we could. So go back to that, and it's very gold-plated. We said, right, we're going to do a couple of stages here. Blend the residential phase. Once we've blended the residential phase, use technology to start spreading it out across time and allowing distance learning, self-paced learning, prior accredited learning, pre-deployment training, whatever else somebody else has got, click, 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 you can move along. And where we allow this then to drive our talent management system. So you become a class 1 corporal sergeant when you've got the qualification, as opposed to us telling you you have to go and do it at a point in time. Operational customer, we're now in the business of using technology to spread out. We've had people from Afghanistan reaching back using the VLE to pick up information at point of sale type stuff. I need to fix this now, can I have a look on there? I haven't got a manual to carry around with me. We've had people on ships going, I've just had everybody do my Windows 2K8 course online on a ship. Brilliant. Off the side of Canada because it's really boring looking at the sea. Didn't even know they're on the VLE. Just get on with it and do it. The other part of this, of course, is 16 people in a classroom is now 8,000, 10,000, 20,000 people on a VLE. Not necessarily in a formal environment, but just doing it. We're benefiting as an organisation because they're upskilling themselves. And of course, that reduces the residential footprint, and our residential footprint is very expensive. Benefits. Before I go into some of the benefits, this is one of the key things, I think. When we're talking to stakeholders, if I'm talking to these people, students and instructors, I talk about efficiency, I talk about how it makes it better for them, effectiveness, how it makes it a better job for them, how it's better for the student. If I talk to these people, yes, they're interested in effectiveness, but they're more interested in some of the efficiency stuff. So the language changes as we move through this. In terms of benefits, here's some of the bits that we've achieved over the last few years. In terms of agility, and I used quality, agility and cost. Currency of knowledge is really important. If you're in the IT sector and you never been back to do any training over the last 15 years, you're analog. Chuck it out there, can bring themselves up to date. You either mandate it or self-development. And in terms of costs, some of the stuff we're achieving. We are looking for £1.5 billion over 25 years. And we think we can achieve it, but I'll tell you why there may be some issues as we move forward. Lessons. I've broke this down into learning and development. So in that training environment and then into the business environment. As a program manager, and I used to run a college prior to being a program manager. That's what happens. And that's why I think Andrew makes a point really well about let's use lots of different ways to talk. Let's get comfortable with working laterally, talking laterally. We're really good at this. So in terms of hierarchies, I'm sure we're sitting there, those who've been in the military are in the military, lovely hierarchy. That's our command chain. That's how we tell people what to do. That's the way we communicate as well. That means we're very, very stovepiped in communication terms. We want to spread this laterally across those spaces. Do not try to change the organisational culture. I picked this up by blogging. I was blogging madly on a not business as usual, and a guy called Alistair Dryburgh was on there. And he said, oh yeah, you could change the culture. I said, yeah, transformation programme, got to change the culture. He said, give me a call. So I phoned him up, and he said, right, changing the culture. Yep, transformation programme, got to change the culture. Okay, so you're in the military. Yep, so you bend over backwards to help each other. You're positive, you're dynamic, you always try and win. Yep, why on earth do you want to change that culture? He said, you want to change your practices, process, and behaviours, not your culture. And who owns the practices, behaviours, and processes? We own them. Culture, if I'm telling somebody, I'm going to change your culture, and for 30 years you've been doing that job, you're going to get really upset because I'm telling you rubbish, really. That's not the case. You're brilliant. What I've given you is the wrong tools, the wrong practices, the wrong processes. Blended solution. This is classic, probably the same in lots of areas. We're going to do a blended learning solution. Oh, we're all doing e-learning. Everything else going out the window. No, we're doing a blended learning solution. No, you're doing e-learning. No, we're doing a blended learning solution. Trying to get that across to people is really difficult. They like to default to an either or. I mentioned about facts, and technology is really important, but we're trying to be efficient and effective. In the business space, as I said there, policy, process, and practices influence our behaviours. So we can change those if we want to change the behaviours. I'm talking about public sector on that second one. Other organisations may be far better at this. Be visionary, set that real beautiful goal of where we want to get to, but we have to be incremental. We're a really conservative organisation. If I go big bang, it's just not going to happen. And we don't wake up to a new world. We gradually get there. We become blended. Keep checking the organisational requirement. It's given. Need to balance risk to organisational output. I think this is really interesting because everybody will be in this position will be at one scale. People tell me that you can do everything on the e-learning, and you can. Should you? Is the next question. From our perspective, it's not just about the learner, it's about our output. And our output is a very risky environment, and we may want to de-risk that, recognising we could do everything by e-learning, but we're not prepared to take that organisational risk. So that's where we bring that factor into it. And I think the final bit is absolutely vital. We've got to walk the talk. We've got to absolutely believe in what we're trying to achieve. We're fortunate we've got people who are now recognised, woke up. It's typical military. We wake up and go, bang, we've got to turn. And we all get on with it. We've begun to recognise that we need leaders who really walk the talk in terms of how learning and development has a direct impact on organisational capability. And it does. It's fascinating to watch. All right. Andrew's busy tweeting me, are you? Oh, yeah. Right.
Thank you, Garry.
We're on.
Both, thank you very much. Very interesting perspectives that you both present there about what's happening in two very, very different parts of the world and how you've gone about doing that. So I really do appreciate your insights there. So now's a chance to get you guys involved, a traditional type of Q&A type thing, except I don't really do tradition. So I want you to just have a quick chat amongst yourselves around what was the one or two key things for you which came out from either Andy's talk or from Garry's talk. And then we're going to shout that back out. But you're not really going to shout, I'll come around with this, obviously. But we'll do that in a nice way. So let's just do that very quickly. Just turn to somebody around who you're sitting next to. What were one or two key things that you heard from them that you thought, that's gold. I could actually do something with that. Do that, please, with each other. Go. Probably not. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's done. Thank you very much. Okay, so who'd like to shout out or get the microphone to speak up? I'm going to come round. This is what I do. This is what I'm here for. Hello. Who do we have? We have Clive Booley. Could you let us know what your learning context is before you start shouting something out?
It's interesting because I'm on Garry's organisation, so very heavily involved with that. But it was Andy actually identifying that irreducible minimum of content that you've got to push, and then hanging the rest out there for people to pick up on as and when they need it, and that whole user-generated content piece. So I was, really switched on by that. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Very kind of you.
Give us something back then, Andy.
Okay. I showed it the wrong way round. I deliberately showed the 52-minute thing afterwards, because that's the conversation you have with your subject matter expert. If you go to them and say, I want you to produce something for me, and you've got 13 minutes is your maximum time, it changes the way they think about it. They take out all the stuff that doesn't need to be there, and that's where you can have that conversation about what the sustaining and the required element stuff is. Because when you start stripping out, and if you know you've only got 6 minutes to put in terms of content, you're going to strip out all the stuff that doesn't need to be there. And that's how you drive that with the manager. You drive that with the subject matter expert. So use the 52-minute thing. I mean, if you want to invest more, invest, like I said, 6% of the time. A 35-hour week, that's 2 hours. You've then got more capacity and more to do that. Key to it, and what's worked for me for 52 minutes is it's a memorable number, and it's a short, sharp, how you support it.
Fab, thank you. Right, who's up? Who's next? Hello. One moment, I'm just going to go to the back over here. Right, that was you, sir. Sorry, your name is John Doucette, and you're from?
We're part of the organisation that delivers to what Garry's trying to describe for the future college.
He's got his fan club in.
It's referenced some of the things that Garry said, but really, again, I'd like to throw it to your partner. I'm a product of what Garry described, having come through the military the old-fashioned way, and I'm part of the organisation that delivers training now, and to an extent, we're still traditional in the way we deliver stuff there. Now, one of your bullets that put up there that struck me as with a big question mark is that we're getting highly motivated people that want to move forward. I don't see that, and my question really is are we demotivating them by bringing them into an organisation that perhaps is more traditional in its approach of delivering, or are they just not motivated?
Okay. The easiest test for motivation was in terms of counting stuff, because I didn't measure anything. The whole performance measurement took place in the workplace by the manager. But if you want to see if people are motivated, I had a workforce of 2,800, and in the first 3 months, when I brought this in, I had between 600 and 1,000 new enrolments every month. So let's put that in context. That's a third of my workforce wanted to learn something new every month. So in terms of motivation, they wanted to find stuff out. Now that number went down because realistically they found other ways to do it. So what we did is we built and encouraged the way for people to share stuff. So a Yammer network was started, which had 40 odd people. When I left the organisation, it was 950 people, discrete groups holding long conversations where people were learning and trading stuff. I can't measure that, and I wouldn't expect to, but it definitely showed that there was a motivation for people who wanted to move forward. What it does, it changes the nature of the L&D offer. It goes back to that we're not pushers anymore. We provide the framework. This is our expectation that you develop yourself. I would argue probably everybody in the room here has a set of competencies for their organisation. And I would argue everybody has, within those competencies, something around personal responsibility. All we've said is, if you want to learn something, that's a personal responsibility. And if you're not meeting that, that's not our fault. We'll build the space, we'll make it available, and if you choose not to do that, well then it becomes a performance issue with your manager.
Can I just carry on with the advance that point a little bit? Is that I absolutely get where you come from, because I was a product of that environment as well. Is we're bottom loading people into our organisation, so it isn't siloed, it's all those younger people coming in. Where we're seeing the difference is where we've got a comparator of somebody teaching in a traditional manner and somebody teaching in a blended environment. And what will happen is the student course works in both environments. They're moving from that traditional environment into a blended environment and then back again. Go to a traditional environment and say, I assume this will all be on the virtual learning environment tonight, and we're going to be doing this, this, and this. They are pushing the instructors in the other areas, and I think that's fantastic. That's where we should be. But we as an organisation have misaligned it because we're delivering in a traditional environment for a group of people who are coming in from an experiential environment. I am generalising, I absolutely get that. It's linked to Sumatra's point this morning about what's our education system here. God, I don't want to criticise him too much, but he said, oh, we're still traditional. UK's changed the education system. Our people are brilliant. My son, I sit there and listen to him, and he everything, tablet, everything, VLE, absolutely gets it. Understands how to work out why, not just make it happen. So.
Cool. Thank you very much. Very good responses there. We're going to run to the front over here.
There's another one.
Sorry, what's your name?
It's Marcelo.
Marcelo. Hello. Where are you from?
I'm from Brazil.
Brazil?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I didn't come from Brazil just for this.
Okay.
I live here. don't be too flat. Right. So this is to Andy. I've got a number of engineers that they've got formal training, so they have a quota, an entitlement of a number of days of training, and they value that as like, for them it's like a perk. And my problem is I want to diminish the amount of formal training, and how can I? There's already a lot of informal going on. There's Slack, not the one that you mentioned, but other forms of social networking going on. There's pairing, that are working as IT, so they program together, pair programming. So a number of things already going on, but I want to increase those and decrease formal training. So what kind of message can I tell them? How can I make them conscious of the benefits stuff?
Yeah, I had a similar conversation with a social care L&D lead, and he said the same thing. Social workers like to get together and have a chat about stuff. I'm getting nods in the audience, I'm vehemently nodding. So allow them to do that, but just remove the formal bit. Create an action learning set where they bring the particular issue. Call it reflective practice. It's informal, but they're still learning, but within the constraints that you create. So you give them the time and the opportunity, but without having to put a formal input. So get them to tell you what they need support with and get them to develop an action learning set. Go in and create and facilitate that, and then they will work that themselves. I had groups of people, time management was one of them, where 6-8 people came together, we facilitated an action learning set, and then they met and they did it and fixed it themselves. That became part of their time that they met for. So you can still give them a formal space, but without a formal input.
Fab, thank you. Right, who else? Where are we going? Right at the back. Wow, okay. Hold on. Hello, who are you? He's Guy Dickinson, and who are you? Where are you from?
I work for a large pharma company.
All right, thank you, Guy.
You mentioned, so I came into your talk a little late, so I missed some of the earlier context, but you used the example of the 13-year-old girl with the Google Glass. And it's often rolled out with respect as a kind of an example of youthful curiosity, millennials, blah, blah, blah. Is that just not actually just a symptom of a really effective user interface and a really easy to grasp technology? And actually that's a better lesson for us than the kind of, curiosity of everyone, I think.
That's a really, really good point, and I would to an extent agree with you. Which is one reason I'm a governor at a school. I'm governor at a junior school, and I think there's definitely a shift in the nature of how education is happening now. I echo Gary's point from his presentation. My concern is how we move that critical thinking piece, which is happening in schools now, into the workplace. And I get what you're saying about user interfaces, iPads in schools and so on. I don't think it's necessarily a great idea. But what we need to do is to pick up on that element of curiosity that sits there and see how that develops in the workplace. Your point about Google Glass, yeah, maybe not. Is it because it's so easy to use? But is Minecraft that easy to use? You can make the same argument about Call of Duty. My other son plays Call of Duty. He's on a headset, bad-mouthing Americans. But he's working with peers of his same age and to an objective and sharing resources the same way. Sorry?
Sounds a lot like my meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the technology can help. Interestingly, like I said, the platform I was working from was very, very light. The platform that hosted mine was just a bog standard Moodle platform. It doesn't need to be particularly over and above. What I do is, I think what matters more is, well, what is available for nil or neutral cost now? Go and set up a private YouTube channel and people can upload stuff. Go and, put a video on for a period of time and then take it down. You can use Yammer, you can use LinkedIn. These things are already free and available. You can have a Google Hangout, and people can access it that way. This stuff's there and available and usable, so use it.
Guys, I have a question for you from a perspective of, in my role in setting I'm in, I work for a housing association, and there's a lot of ideas which I've heard from you guys which I've thought, these are really good ideas, I just don't know how I'm going to sell that in. So can you shed some light around that?
Yeah, I think it's using the right language. It's, what's the organisation seeking as a whole? Quality, most organisations I think are increasing quality and decreasing costs. How do you turn your learning development plan strategy into meeting those requirements? So put those on the table first and work backwards. What are you doing that contributes to those? That to me is the way we do it within the organisation. Because those people I put on the right of that axis chart, if I go and talk to them about Bloom's taxonomy, I may not be in the army much longer. Okay, it's talking with the right language.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's about talking the language of business, not busyness. Learning and development, we love talking about how busy we are. Goes back to that clothesline thing. We can count everything, how many people turned up, the number of Fox's Glacier mints that were eaten and the budget that we put aside for those, within our training. But if you actually go and talk to your management teams about how much money you're saving, you're going to you tailor the conversation. I'd never go to a subject matter expert and say, right, I expect you to deliver this. What I would do is go to them, having horizon scanned 18 months ahead, and said, in a year's time, you're going to have a problem because of change in EU legislation. How are you going to resource it? And then go to them, present them with the problem, and then walk away. They will come back, and then you're in a position to have a conversation with them about how they can do it more effectively, more efficiently, and obviously more cheaply as well.
Thank you very much. Right, who's next? Who's got a good question? Well, not a good question, but who's got a question? Here we go, thank you. Right, what's your name, please?
My name's Faisal. I work for Aldi.
Right, thank you very much, Faisal.
I think firstly, thanks to Garry about the not changing organisational culture, because I work for a very conservative organisation as well, but one which is very successful and extremely efficient in the way that it delivers things. Just maybe wondered if you could go into that a little bit more in terms of why you took that approach in terms of not changing the organisational culture and thinking about that approach.
Yeah, I woke up to it. Yeah. Generally, I was blogging and somebody pointed. I learned from somebody about something I was out of kilter with. I thought we needed to change the culture. It was only when somebody woke me up to it and said, think about what culture truly is in your organisation. Why do we have Diageo that's lasted 100 plus years, Cadbury's? These organisations have got really good culture. They might need to change practice, process and behaviours because the context has changed. That's, I think, is the important bit, is continually tracking your context. I put up on there about Agile Thinking Warrior. Freaky term, never thought of that before. That means our context is changing. We need to do something different. As Andrew said, if Agile Thinking Warrior is a capability, what does it mean in the learning space? So that's linking back into learning. But I think from an organisation, we have to be careful sometimes about cultural change, because you're really saying you're in the wrong space.
Yeah, I think you automatically think you have to do that, but actually, you've got something that works, then don't.
Fab, thank you very much. Who's next? Lots of good questions. Right, over here. Who do we have?
Hi there, mine's Andy Colgan. I'm from the Fire and Rescue Service. I've listened to what you've said about young people coming in as recruits. Fire and Rescue Service haven't recruited for probably 5 or 6 years. Average age in the 3 services that I operate with is around 46. How do I get those guys involved in Twitter, Facebook, Yammer, and all the other good stuff that's out there? It's really, and it's not a cultural thing. It's more of a policy process, I guess. But
okay, there's you need to understand there's 4 factors that will impact on people's literacy to want to use these things. The first one is they can or they can't, and that's a question of ability. So do they have the ability to use these things? For something that's technical, you might need to put some support in, but you'll be surprised. Most people can work their way around this stuff. The second one is they have or they haven't, and that's in terms of access. So do you need to put something in place where they're able to access it? So that might just mean unlocking it on the station PCs. I used to work for the fire rescue service myself, so I have an understanding of some of the stuff. There's the wills and the won'ts, and that's attitudinal. Some people will want to engage with it and some people won't. Do you understand how many do already? It's very easy. I remember I had a conversation with a union rep. You have to put this technology in place. This stuff has to be available in the workplace, etc., etc. You need to put training for people how to do this. I went on Facebook, found the numbers of staff that they were talking about and went, well, they're already doing it. So why do I need to do something different? The last one, which is probably the more challenging one, and this is the hierarchical one you have to deal with the organisation, which is some things you should and some things you shouldn't. And it's picking and choosing the ones that you should and shouldn't be having. So if you set a LinkedIn group up for your fire rescue personnel, almost none of them are going to use it because they're probably not on there anyway. So where's the best place for those conversations to happen? And it's about interpreting the mess room atmosphere that sits within the fire service and saying where's the best place to do that. And that might be a Google Hangout. So that would be enabling a device where people could share stuff across different different stations, for example. That's the approach that I think about it. But the four core are you can or you can't, you have or you haven't, you will or you won't, or you should and shouldn't. And you need to bear those in mind in terms of literacy about the groups of people you're going to work with.
Just to add on, because you're similar sort of hierarchical organisation, I'm assuming that you've got a training school environment. Yeah, we're probably similar demographics. It's not about age in our place. We've found it's an awful lot of our ink spots are not what you would have picked out at the start, and they just get it. And they begin to feed each other and embarrass the person who hasn't engaged. And of course, if you can get to a stage where you've got 90 or 100% of your people comfortable doing the training piece, those who are coming in fall into line with it to a certain extent, not totally. We still have people who we still have young people coming in and say, I prefer to use a book. We've got to look after them as well.
Right, thank you. Right, who else? We've got loads of time. Got plenty of your time for your questions. Right, hello. Who are you? Where'd you come from?
I'm from Grant, from Glasgow. This is more for, Garry? I come from the public sector, a shipping company called Calmac Ferry Company in Scotland, the biggest ferry company. And we are going through a huge transformational change at the moment. So we're transforming from our training function into an L&D function. So the majority of our training is governed or regulated by international standards, regulations, and also the MCA, Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. So the course outlines of the course is fixed, if you like. So we're limited in terms of replacing that with any e-learning solutions. So we'd maybe look at blended learning, but not to replace, but maybe to support. Yeah. So given that a lot of the training is aimed at ship-based crew who work shift systems, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, they get there. So there's hours of work legislation. How would you encourage, not persuade, maybe encourage the crew to use the maybe e-learning or blended learning solutions that may be an offer to them on their time off?
Yep. It's a fantastic conundrum that you've got. I mean, first of all, you make the absolutely right point about blended learning supporting you in what you're trying to achieve. We've got a similar situation. One of our schools is very much in the aeronautical environment, so they are mandated by CAA regulations back through our own military system. But we still use blended learning there because what we've done is look at what the outcome that's trying to be achieved and then work back from that as opposed to just taking the approach that's always been in place. So I think that's the bit about how you can use blended learning in your course construct. The other part then is the whole business about how do you look after people who are learning, not in a school environment. We're just going through this in the MOD at the moment, and our view is that we have to give them time. If they'd have been in the traditional school, they wouldn't have been in the workplace, so that time was already out. So we're taking that time and moving it into their own place. So they're going to have that time at home, wherever. So that's one area. The other area, of course, and I sort of alluded to it, is that L&D doesn't stand on its own. So what's your talent management progression route? So where are the hooks that incentivise people to move along that through learning and development? Now, I don't know enough detail about the shipping space, but it isn't just in the L&D space. It's about capability. licensing, what capability you require in the shipping space, therefore what L&D, what strategy I need, does it affect my talent management piece? All of it's going to have to be wrapped into what you're doing. I love Glasgow. I lived up in Paisley for 4 years and learned to play the bagpipes. Crazy place.
Right, thank you very much. Where am I getting to next?
I have a question.
Oh,
if,
Andy has a question. Coming on Twitter or what?
No.
Going out to the group?
Yeah, absolutely.
You rebel, you?
I am. Well, everybody's come here because they want to come to a reframing, reforming kind of different approach. Why aren't you doing it?
The workforce. What about the workforce?
And he's picking up on that it's something I've kind of started talking about Andrew about this already. I work in the NHS. Excellent. So I work in the NHS, and we kind of have a complete mixed variety of people. Definite difference in abilities. A number of people still believe a mouse eats cheese. Tablets are what they give to patients to make them feel better. And it is trying to get that change. Hearing the kind of talk, the defence side of things, it also got me thinking about the type of people we have in the roles that are delivering it in the first place. Often what we end up doing is we recruit people that have come through from that background. So, within the defence industry, within the health industry, our trainers are all people that have come through that route already. And they're not necessarily the right people to do it and to influence that change. You kind of need people to come from the outside with different perspectives. But getting that buy-in and getting the people more senior to agree to it, it's the risk.
That's an interesting one, because when I started working for the fire service, strangely enough, the fire station was a big building with the doors that were locked and only ever came out when you only ever saw the firefighters when something was wrong. You go to a fire station now, it's a community hub where people can understand how to protect themselves, and the nature of the role has changed. But the people themselves haven't necessarily. Firefighters have been there 20 years and so on. They're the same firefighters who were there. We just ask them to do the job differently. It's exactly the same in the NHS. The nature of the role is different. And the people might be the same, but the job is changing around them. And I think that's one of the functions that we have to consider. The nature of the job is different now. And your point about tablets and mice and so on, absolutely. But the job will change. The society is changing. It is different now as it was before. And we need to help people understand how they need to change themselves.
I do think you'd sort of go back again to, in the NHS, what are you trying to achieve at a particular department, a particular section, and therefore how does L&D fit into it? And then you get the buy-in from your senior management level to say, well, we're going to have to do this, this and this in order to achieve your output. And turning your standards back round. You're telling me to do this. This is how we can achieve it. I'm the expert in the L&D field. I do also think the NHS, my daughter works in the NHS, and I've talked to her quite a lot about this. Very similar to us and the fire service, we're all in those critical environments where in order to operate effectively, you have to have deep self-belief in what you're doing. Fantastic strength when you're in that environment, not particularly brilliant when you need to transform and you need to look over the fence, because you go back to default into I'm really good at this, what can anybody else teach me? And there is a little bit in the NHS, I think. I didn't want to go that far.
We've got something here from Jules.
I think the question around why are any of us not doing it is a really challenging question and makes me anyway sort of squirm around in my seat a little bit and go, that's quite tough. But there is something about often when I'm working with clients, there's a lack of belief in us, from an L&D perspective, that our workforce can. So we make excuses on their behalf because we're trying to be really supportive, and in as much as it's uncomfortable when you challenge us, and I kind of squirm and go, please don't do that. Like, I don't particularly want to put that sometimes on the people that I work with, and I think we have to step up as well massively. So I think that's a thing.
Do we generate enough discomfort?
Do we generate enough discomfort? There's loads of people. I've got like 3 minutes left. I'm not going to get around to everyone. Sorry. I'm going to come straight to you because you're right here.
Sorry, I'm Matt. I'm from Deloitte accountancy firm, and just briefly, I'd add to that to Jules. Really, I think part of the problem is, for me personally, I don't have the ability to be able to articulate and sell what needs to happen and change. And I look what needs to be different, and it's my ability to talk to business people in a business language and not L&D language. Something I'm working on, but it's part of my own problem as well.
Yeah.
So find the people who do talk in terms of business and work with them and learn from them, and that's going to develop you and develop the business. You know what you need to do, so JFDI, isn't it?
Also, thank you for being so honest to everyone in the room about that. That's not an easy thing to do, so thank you for that.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm from Fitch Group. Thank you very much. They were both very good presentations. I'm a big advocate of both informal learning, user-generated content and everything like that. But I can't help noticing both your presentations alluded to the fact that you went down that route due to shrinking budgets. So my question is, if you didn't have that shrinking budget, and if you had more money, what would you change to improve how you did deliver it?
Absolutely. Like I said, I've been talking about this for about 2 years, and I get asked that in almost any conference where I talk about it. What I would be doing is commissioning more access. I'd be giving people, but I said the can, can'ts, have, haven'ts. So if people haven't got access, how do I make that access available? I'd be looking for better quality subject matter from people. I'd be looking at buying content as opposed to curating stuff that's already there. Better quality content. I use nil or neutral cost photos, but there's better quality photos around and about. I use nil or neutral cost comic strips. I could go and buy some artwork, for example, and make it brand specific to my organisation. I wouldn't change the ethos of doing it because I know this works. I've seen it over 2 years and I know it works. It's about how you use the funds that you have available. And it would still need to sit within that, the ethic of how I do it.
I think if I sort of look at a strategic organisational perspective, something drives change. And cost is always one of those factors, whether we like it or not. I think the really, and I think you allude to it, is the really clever piece is to say, should we always wait for cost to drive the change or should we be on the front foot? And that's why I put that piece up about an innovation cell. Because if we're an organisation without the capacity to think ahead, then we're always going to stay in today. And Andrew just mentioned about looking to ahead. So would I change anything in the way we're going now if we didn't have that cost dynamic? No. I think we still need to move in that direction. We should have been moving there anyway without the cost dynamic.
All right, so thank you both very much. Thank you to the audience for taking part, listening, and your questions and challenges back. Steve Wheeler has asked if you could stop by his book signing because he wants you to do that for him. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, folks.